sustainable at home is a question I get asked a lot, and there's so many different things you can do. But one really big thing to save on food waste, there's lots of options in bringing what food into your house and how you do that. But I think one big thing is food waste. So investing in some really good storage containers is a really important thing. So leftovers last. When you buy a bunch of herbs, you can put it into a good storage container and it won't wilt and go bad in the fridge. So definitely good storage containers. Get a bunch of jars so you can buy your grains and pulses and spices in bulk, not in little plastic packets, and then you can store them in airtight containers and they'll last for a long time. And then also, grow what you can is a really big thing, and it's not easy for everyone to grow food at home. I completely understand that, but even if it's just parsley, even if you just grow a little pot of parsley on a balcony somewhere, on a windowsill, think of how many little plastic bags you get every year just buying a bunch of parsley that you often end up throwing half the bunch out as well. And by doing things like that, everything will taste better. A herb never tastes better than when you just picked it and put it into a salad or cooked with it. It's at maximum flavor. Instead of buying herbs in little plastic packets that have been driven around the country, I think that's a really great tip as well. And also we do another thing at home kind of once a week-ish, more at the moment because we've been cooking at home a lot, called fridge dinner, where we don't buy anything. We just have to be resourceful with any leftovers, any pantry staples. So kind of lots of rice-based dishes, couscous-based dishes, pasta dishes, but just using up everything. And sometimes, things might seem a little bit weird, but an example I'll give you is we cooked some roast beef the other week, had some beans on the side, some carrots and some potatoes. We had, I often cook too much. It's just a habit because I'm used to cooking for lots of people. But I diced up the leftover beef, we cut up the vegetables, and I turned it into a curry. It was a little bit random, but it was still delicious enough. We didn't waste anything, and we used up all of those leftovers. So just be a little bit inventive with what you have for sure. Some cooking techniques that I wish I started using earlier. I think cooking with steam. Steam has been a real revolution for me, particularly with the Miele ovens, just the efficiency. I use this example all the time, but when you put some green vegetables, say broccoli, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, whatever it is, into a pot of boiling water, you get a great result. They cook nicely, but when you take that vegetable out of that pot of water, the pot of water is not clear anymore. So what's that done? It's taken nutrients from those vegetables and put them into the cooking liquid. Whereas cooking with steam, you've got all of that steam intensifying all of the flavors in the vegetables, and also making sure all of those vitamins and nutrients and deliciousness is staying inside the vegetable. And also for cooking fish with steam is a beautiful, delicate way of doing it. So the flesh stays nice and relaxed. It doesn't go tough. It's really tender. Steaming chicken is phenomenal. Steaming eggs is fantastic. So yeah, for me, I think cooking with steam has been the technique that I have used mostly in the last few years as in terms of a new technique. And it's something that I wish I picked up a little earlier for sure. The most useful ingredient in my pantry would be, I think, salt. Salt, good flaky, either river or sea salt, is amazing. It makes any simple ingredient taste delicious. You can use it for cooking, curing. You can just add it to a simple roasted piece of meat or vegetable. It brings out the flavor. I think, cooking without salt is really difficult, and, you can do so many things with salt, even in sweet cookery. If you're making a chocolate cake or a chocolate mousse or something like that, a little bit of salt just gives that little edge of, ooh, what's that? So yeah, for me, it's definitely salt. I've been pretty lucky. When we closed the restaurant, I managed to grab a few bits and pieces from around the place. As the craziness was going down and there was no flour on the shelves, we got a big bag of flour from the restaurant, which was great, so we were very lucky. We didn't need to worry about dried pasta because we'd been making a lot here at home. Probably a bit more, some nice wine would have been nice to stock up on. But apart from that, I think we've been pretty lucky. We grow a lot of herbs and veggies out the back. And we've got a lot of great sort of stores and suppliers around us where we live, so we've been pretty lucky. It's really unfortunate. Just before the lockdown happened, my parents were meant to visit from Western Australia, so we would have been cooking dinner for them at home, which would have been lovely. So it might be a little while before we get the chance that the borders are open to do that again. So thinking locally, it'd be a bunch of my chef mates. Nick Stanton from Leonardo's, he lives close by. He comes around for dinner pretty often, so I'm sure he'll be around pretty soon. Zach from Bar Liberty is another great pal of mine, so he'll probably be around. Dave Moyle, another chef who bounces between Tassie and Victoria. He often eats with us and stays with us here as well. And then some of Joe's family, her dad John, her mum Kerry, her brother Aiden, her auntie Robin, lots of different people. So depending on how many people we can have round, but I can't wait to cook a dinner party for everyone. I'm absolutely itching. I think both are great. Both have their place. Cooking on gas is awesome. Cooking on induction is awesome. So, I've been lucky enough to use both for a long time. I think my personal preference, if I was building a new house and putting some Miele appliances in, it would be induction for sure. For me, it's just it's much more efficient. It's much cleaner. You don't need to use a double boiler when melting chocolate, things like that, because of the gentle, even heat achieves the same result. The sides of your pots don't burn because you don't have the gas flame kind of going up the side, so everything stays nice and clean. And it's extremely efficient. You can boil a big pot of water for pasta for the family in next to no time, just a couple of minutes. So, like I mentioned, it's personal preference, but for me, I'd go induction. Gelatin. So, by no means am I an amazing pastry chef. I have done pastry in the past, but I've always had a great pastry team around me. So gelatin's not an ingredient I use a lot, but what I do know of gelatin is there's so many different ones. Powdered gelatin to different, titanium, gold leaf. There's a lot of different products around. All of my experience with using gelatin, I've always softened it in icy cold water. And then I've put it into a hot liquid to finish it, the sort of distribution of it into what I want to set. So, as soon as, this is just my thoughts, as soon as you're using warm water, you might be weakening the sort of properties that you need from gelatin. If it works for you, it works for you, that's cool. Different things work for different people. But all of my experience, I've always used cold water and then dissolved it into the liquid on the stove or warm that I want to set. There's probably a few different ways of doing it, but as far as I've always come across, the cold water softening and then warm it into the liquid you want to set. So that's my experience, but if it works in warm, it works in warm, so go for it. Yeah, all you have to do is open Instagram to see someone making pasta at the moment, which is, it's cool. Pasta's something that is really, when you get the knack of it, quite simple to do, but there's a few little hints and tips along the way. So I like to use a dough that is mostly egg yolks, and then I can use the egg whites or something else. I find that gives a silkier, richer dough, and a higher sort of protein and stretch to it. Always when you're working with your dough, keep it covered up so it doesn't dry out. Keep a towel or a beeswax wrap or something like that over the dough, so you don't get a crust on it. Because when you get that crust on it, when you're rolling it, that'll make little tears in your pasta, and you don't want that. I think laminating your dough quite a few times. So what that means is when you roll it through the machine, fold it back into itself and then turn it the other way and roll it out again. And then turn it and then kind of do that 4 or 5 times. And that lamination of putting those layers together gives a really beautiful stretch and texture to the pasta. So, sometimes when you're making fresh pasta, it can be a little soft, even if you only cook it for a short amount of time. So you want to sort of laminate it, really work that gluten in the flour to make it nice and strong. And then I always leave, once I've shaped my pasta or got it to where I want, then I want it to dry out because you've done all the hard work. And then by just leaving it uncovered on the bench for a couple of hours, it'll kind of dry and it'll firm up and it'll cook much better from there.